It's unfortunate that it looks like the UK is literally sinking to death. And a lot of us African migrants have decided to sink and die with the country. This is not just economic. It's just going through a difficult time at the moment, politically, socioculturally, and there are a lot of reasons that the UK has found themselves in this situation now. This is a very sensitive topic at the moment in the UK. Please, before you come and talk about me being foreign and go back, that's not the conversation here today. I always like to refer to the UK as Great Britain because, to be honest, growing up, that's how we looked at this country, like a great country. Most of us imagined coming especially to study because we heard about the institutions, the culture, the monarchy, the standards of living, and just what made the Brits Brits. I can say this now because I have lived in the UK longer than I've lived anywhere else in the world, and I'm 41 years old, and I came here as a 21-year-old student, and this was in early 2000 when things were okay, when even the pound value, it was almost double the dollar. It was really strong in most African countries as well. The UK's pound was one of the best currencies to be paid in. Things were looking very positive for a lot of people. And like it or not, when the economy is booming, so does migration. And the net migration numbers will climb up. And that's what happened. It's inevitable. Fast forward to 20 years later, this has been creeping in gradually. I use the analogy of a ship because a big ship doesn't just automatically sink. It takes a while. In this case, it could take years. I really feel like since 2008, the big financial crisis, the UK hasn't quite recovered from what happened then. There was always prosperity and then came austerity. There was prosperity in the early 90s up to maybe that time in 2000, and then the Tories things changed. I'm not going to go very political on this video. I want this video just to inform anybody because you might have been seeing these videos left and right talking about the economic situation, and because you've not heard it from somebody like myself, a migrant. So this is from my lens and how the country has transformed in 2 decades while I have watched things change. In the early 2000s, when I came here like a student, I could work, I could manage to pay my rents, I could survive. Most single income households could survive. The cost of living was okay. Wages was almost commensurate to inflation and living standards. So things were okay, especially if you were hardworking. A few years later, we got the big economic crisis in 2007, 2008, and things started picking back up. I think around COVID, things were okay because more people had disposable income because of maybe working from home. And then when Brexit happened before that, a lot of skilled labor was lost. And then they opened the floodgates for very low skilled workers, especially from third world countries, coming to look for a better life, and that's absolutely fine. But years later, things have gone downhill, and the reasons are so obvious. The first thing really that people are talking about are the ridiculously high taxes. Literally, the only thing left is to pay taxes on breathing. We pay taxes on everything. The roads you drive, the car you drive, the house, to the point that it feels like you're being punished if you're ambitious in this country. People don't want to earn over 50,000 a year because you go up to 40% tax. This is income tax. Businesses is dire. It's so bad. Capital gains tax are so high. Just having a business, a tax you pay. I have had a business in this country, and honestly, part of what drove me to halt were the amount of taxes levied on me because I registered my company to trade across Europe. It was crazy. The VAT, just life in general for a business person, there is no positive value proposition for anybody to have a business. So what happens? The rich, the millionaires, I'm sure you guys have seen, last year 10,800 millionaires left because of the high taxes. They went to tax havens like the UAE, especially Dubai. Switzerland has always been a popular one. Singapore, other places that have actually, that the US, they promote hard work. It's not like a punitive system where hard work gets penalized and people don't want to do much, so people go on benefits. And then they start blaming immigrants when we are not the problem. Far from it. In fact, with all due respect, you might start feeling what we immigrants felt when we left our countries years ago because of maybe failing government, certain policies we're not happy with, political issues, and just lack of any sort of growth or ambition or just living standards. People are leaving to China to be teachers. People are leaving to Dubai to be experts, to Portugal, to Spain, to the US. How will you feel if you were ambushed while you were working abroad like most of us have had to do? I hope that you kind of understand that. We, when I say we collectively, I'm sitting here like a Brit because I am British. My kids have no other home but the UK. So this is a collective problem that we all feel. And the pinch starts from us and it trickles down if things don't improve. Taxes is just one issue. There's the issue of very high interest rates. I look at my kids and I wonder, gosh, how would you guys manage to save to buy your first homes? The housing market at the moment is so deplorable. Houses are not selling because the interest rates are ridiculous. So borrowing is a problem. Getting a mortgage is almost impossible. The rich people, which is the 1% of the population who own most of the wealth, especially foreigners from Russia and China, are just buying all the houses cash. And for a young person to get on the property ladder seems impossible. And then let's move to the living standards daily. I got into gardening recently. I'll tell you guys a very quick thing. And I'll go to my local garden center maybe once or twice a week to get a new plant, to just have a look and get some ideas. And there's this particular lady I always saw at my garden center. I saw her maybe once a month and we'll have a chat. She was in her late 70s. She just took a liking to me and we'll have a chat sometimes while she's having a tea and her scone. That was her a way she socialized because she was a widow. Lately, every time I go there, she's there. So I asked her, I said, why do you spend more time at the garden center? She said, my darling, it's cheaper for me to buy a scone and a cup of tea for £4 and spend the whole day here in a warm place. I cannot afford to heat my home. That was when it really hit me that the cost of living crisis. I get really teary talking about this because I can imagine that could be my mother. That could be my grandmother. And these are real problems people are facing. She's a pensioner. They might have some subsidies, but it's nowhere close. She talked about just surviving. She has a very small Vauxhall she drives there. She said everything was tough. And I felt it 100%. People cannot heat their homes in the winter months. People die because they freeze to death. And it just beggars belief why the cost of energy is so high. Gas and electric is the highest, I think, in the world. I can't even talk about what I pay for my household of 6. It's not about me, but it's about the average Brit. Some people cannot afford what I can afford, and I feel lucky. But it doesn't mean that there's no problem. It's because I've managed to save up enough to fill the gap, which should not be the case. We used to go to the shops before and you think about the Aldis and the Lidls of this world and you'll spend maybe £30 a week for a small family and you eat okay. If you stick to non-organic, by the way. But now it doesn't even cut it. You walk into the shops and have a big family and it's £60 later and you're there again during the week because there's no bread, there's no milk, there's no egg. The cost of living is so high, inflation rates, it's ridiculous. And then the housing market, to rent, forget about London. Inner London is almost impossible to rent a one bed. A decent flat is about 2,300. What is the average wage in the UK? After tax is about 28,000. That works out to about £2,300 a month. This is for almost killed people because it's about 35,000 gross. So this is the net of 28,000. How many people actually earn 35,000? How many new people who come here with no skill? These are the Africans or the migrants. You'll have to work your way up the ladder by doing minimum wage jobs to earn anything like that, or otherwise you'll have to work around the clock. And then you think about what you spend, especially if you're coming with a family. You'll be living paycheck to paycheck, hand to mouth. Why am I saying this? Unfortunately, if you live in this country, you have no choice where to go to. This is your reality. This is the sad reality for some Africans who live in countries where they barely survive. But when you think that you're taking yourself, uprooting yourself because you want a better life without knowing the full facts of what you'll face once you get here, it beggars belief. Do your research. A lot of people come with their families, travel miles from different African countries, sell their property sometimes, and they cannot even buy one because most of the money they have, they spend it just to try to get by daily. It is a very, very bleak situation. It is. And then we're talking about investments, trying to grow the economy. And AI is in front of everybody talking about this. How do data centers function when energy and gas is so high? When people like normal people can't, what about businesses? They are all leaving. People are leaving to countries where it's safe, and that's the next problem. It's the safety, the crime rates. Certain places in London, I don't think I can walk with my feet without being scared. I live out of London, so it's different, but I've lived in London as well. But now, on the streets, there was a video where a millionaire was robbed and pushed, and police reactions are so slow because they're overstretched because of the courts. So the crime rates have gone right up. And the biggest people who suffer are the low-income earners in the worst areas, and immigrants are top on this list. They live in areas where policing is overstretched because of the number of crimes. So it becomes a norm. So you expose yourself because you want to travel abroad to standards that your kids will never be exposed to back home, which brings a whole new problem. But for those who live here, the crime rates is not attractive. You want to go to somewhere where you're safe. Places like Dubai, places like Singapore. But to be honest, this problem with the UK, even the US are facing a bit less of that, Canada as well, and mainland Europe. Certain countries are different, like Portugal, Spain, they're really, really big on attracting people to come in. But the UK doesn't seem to get it. And the other big problem is the loneliness and the depression. Whether we like it or not, we have one of the worst weather in Europe. Our summers are really, really, really very, I wouldn't call it summer. It could be 2 weeks of warm weather and the rest of it is very bleak. I'm sat in front of my window, and to say that it's not depressing looking outside in Jan, I'll be lying. It's cold, the buildings are brown, people get depressed, suicide rates with men are very high because there's no prospect of having relationships, so they tend to be lonely and they become suicidal and have all sorts of mental health challenges. Are we thinking about this when we're bringing our family, especially when we leave from abroad with little or no support from family? It gets worse. You stay at home and you feel worthless, and your standards of living and everything else in the country takes you down a very, very bad route. People tend to, marriages break down because of the stress, and there are other things that I'm not going to cover in this video. But generally, before you leave and you come, ask yourself this question: why am I coming? If you are genuinely coming to study, think about what you're coming to study, because you'll be paying a lot of money and you'll be hoping to just somehow get your way into the economy and stay. Not only would you struggle to regularize yourself, you'll start down the chain and start earning very little, but you've incurred almost £20,000 debts. I saw a girl recently and she said she came to study, I think it was logistics, which is a good field, and I asked her why. She couldn't give me an answer. Her fees was £18,000. She just graduated and she's struggling to get a job. I'm helping her, mentoring her. But I said, if you could take £18,000 and start a business back home, what would that give you? What's the attractive? She's like, oh my God, I could do a lot with that. I said orientation and knowledge is power, because you could go for a professional course as opposed to going for a degree. Unfortunately, the UK doesn't really reward education like other places like the US. You'll study, but you would probably not end up in a professional job that will pay you enough. So think about, if you want to go back, what you need to study. Things that are vibrant, or do a professional course. Don't incur all of this debt for nothing. I'm not saying don't go to university, but before you go, think about the courses that will give you a job almost immediately. Don't follow the crowd. Titanic, when it was about to sink, do you think that when the Titanic took off and they told people getting on board that this ship is going to sink halfway through, do you think that they would have climbed on that ship? Probably not. They had no idea they'll be in that situation. But why is it that you guys, you're being told that life abroad right now is not a bed of roses at all, but you're adamant that you still want to travel, irrespective of what you know? Why? Why do you want to sink within a ship that's really sinking? I saw a video about people talking about where to go to. Brits are living in their numbers, going to teach supply chains in China. They're going to Dubai, Singapore, to other places in Europe, Spain, Portugal, and Malta, places that are attracting them. And nobody seemed to call Africa. They called places that they would not go to. They said the US, Trump, people are not attracted. Canada, it has its own issues. Talked about other places. But Africa, there's a lot going on. That is where the future is. So for to see people leaving to come here, it just beggars belief. And I don't know if it's just because we're not educated enough, but I can tell you that it is fantastic to travel. And I'm a product of traveling. So when I see a lot of you come to me and say, why are you here? But this is home for me. When I came here, I never came here to stay here because it was a good country to live in. I came here to study. But I got married and this is home now with 4 kids later. But I am in this now. I am paying the high tax. I live in a country with soaring living, very high cost of living. It's not commensurate to pay. It's bleak. People are depressed. But I'm in it. My kids are here. It's a different ball game. If I ever had to move back, it has to be a strategic move and a plan to move back home. But you have a choice to think smartly before you come. If you're coming to visit, you're coming to just like an expat worker, compare the wages. Compare your family's social ties, because I keep saying that the social ties, or the lack of, is what leads to depression and the reduction in people's standards of living and mental health. And even social housing, it is a problem. There are no social housing, so people struggle to settle. Young people, young Brits are homeless, living in shelters, in shared accommodation. Things are tough. It's not a bed of roses here. Consider everything before, especially you sell up and travel. I hope that this video meets somebody who is in this position, or if you're here in the UK, can you tell me what has been the most difficult? Or I think even in Canada, US, it's generally not easy for everybody, but particularly the UK seems to be going downhill in so many aspects. What really has been your biggest eye-opener since this crisis started? Do you want to share in the comment section? Let's have a chat. And if it's the first time that you've seen one of my videos, my name is Lulu. This is Lulu Diaries, and I share my thoughts, what I'll do different as a 40-year-old African migrant in the UK, navigating life, a career, business. What I'll do different, I'd like to give back and tell my younger self, but I did not have a chance to. And I hope this has helped you. If it has, give us a like. Consider subscribing, because we have a lot of information that we share, and we're trying to build a community of like-minded individuals, especially the diaspora migrants who looking for a better life. And hopefully we can do that. So I'm here to educate and give back. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.